contemplate for a while.
Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to 2022, episode 1, Security Squawk podcast. I'm your co-host, Brian Horning, with Reginald Andre and Randy Bryan. How are you, gentlemen? Welcome to 2022.
Happy New Year, Brian and Randy.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Doing great. I wanted to just say it got down to like 26 degrees here the other day. We're all dying in Texas right now. It is getting up pretty warm during the day, though.
So, yeah, that is pretty cold for Texas because it's that cold here. But it's more than one day here. But
some friends of ours spent New Year's on the beach at a beach house, and it was 80 degrees until New Year's Eve, and then it started getting cold on Saturday afternoon. What is that? Was that New Year's Day? But yeah, they were at the beach for like 4 days before that. Nice and hot. It got up to 80 every day, man.
Nice.
Nice.
So
I'll take that.
Nice. So today's topics, just to kind of give everybody a bearing for where we're going to go with the show today. We know we're aware of some ransomware attacks in the news, guys, and ransomware attacks that are actively happening right now, and they're not in the news. And we're not going to sit here and pontificate on why these things are not making the news. You can be the judge of that, but we're going to be the source for the information so you understand what the hell's going on out there, and how real and big of a threat ransomware, hackers, and cyber criminals in general are. So the goal of this show, number one, is to do that, is to bring awareness and educate you and make sure that you're fully informed as business owners and business people about what you have to deal with when you turn on that computer every day, because it's not like we use computers every once in a while. And this is a threat that we only have to be concerned about. It's not like bungee jumping off a bridge, folks. This is like driving a car. This is like getting in the car every day, putting on your seatbelt. They worked for over 100 years on improving safety in cars. They don't really work on improving the safety of your cybersecurity on a Windows computer. That's all on you these days, and all on guys like us. So we're here to bring this information to you because nobody else is. So remember, there's only one fee for the show. Share the show. Share it to your friends. Share it to your family. Help us get the word out. Get everybody educated. The quicker we get educated, the quicker people get smarter about this stuff, the harder it's going to be for hackers, and the quicker they're going to go away, and it's not going to be as attractive and as lucrative as it is today in 2022. 2021 was a record year, and 2022 is already starting off to be better for the cyber criminals than 2021. So that's where we're at today, guys. Anything you want to add to the intro? We're going to jump right into dispelling the myth of LastPass for everybody. But anything that you want to add in the intro while I share our stuff out on social media?
Not really. I'm excited about talking about LastPass, and I would definitely agree with what you're saying. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And you don't want to be in that place if you're a business owner, where you're having to seek out cybersecurity help because you were hacked. You want to start moving that way now, while you're not hacked. Even if you may be hacked, you need to start moving that way now. It's a whole lot easier to stay safe, safer, than to come back from a hack. So.
Yep. So the first one we're going to jump into, guys, is it kind of took the social media world by storm a little bit. I saw a lot of cybersecurity experts out there yelling at everybody, change your LastPass password, because I think that's everybody's biggest fear right now, quite frankly. I'm telling people left and right, make sure you're using a password manager, better password hygiene. And the number one question I get back, well, what if they get hacked? When we go through all the security they have in place, and they don't know your master password. Nobody knows it except you. So, we go through all that with everybody to make them feel assured that these password managers are really going to protect them and not be the source of, maybe a devastating breach to them personally or to their business. And, we got internet heroes. I don't know what you want to call them, keyboard warriors that run the social media. As soon as something comes out, I'm like, go out and change your LastPass password. Right. And, quite frankly, I saw those things, and I think you guys reached out to me, and I just said, kind of like, hold off, this isn't what it's appearing to be on the surface. And I think, Randy, you and I talked about it a little bit, and Andre, there's a virus or there's a malware going around that is stealing. And I can do this very simply. Anyone can do this. This isn't some sophisticated malware. What the problem is people, when they go to a website and log in, and browsers like Google Chrome say, hey, do you want to save your password? People are clicking yes and hitting save because they're lazy. Bad idea, right? What's going on with this red line, Randy?
Well, surprisingly, it's currently the number one information stealing malware that they are aware about right now. And it's basically just stealing credentials from the browsers, and looks like they're either selling it or giving it away on the dark web. Have I Been Pwned has just posted 441,000 accounts that were stolen by Redline. That were stolen by Redline. So they're basically just, it gets on a computer, it's undetectable. I was asking in the green room, is it still undetectable? I know as of, like late last week, it was still undetectable on a computer. And they're getting on the computer. They can get into the passwords that are saved in the browsers, that's actually really easy to do anyway. Especially if you have access to the computer itself, the bad guys can get it. But this is basically allowing them to do that, on a scale.
Yep. And I'm dealing with that cold, and I just went into a little coughing fit. So thanks for
same here. So
thanks for filling in for me there. So yeah, hey, number one, great point. Very easy to steal passwords if you save them in any browser. It's not just Chrome. We're not picking on Chrome here. If you're going to the extent of using a password manager, don't save passwords in these browsers. It's a bad idea. It's a bad idea just to do it in general. Kind of like, I guess it'd be, in my mind, the equivalent of, driving from the back seat. Let's skip putting a seatbelt on. This kind of be the same thing as trying to drive from the back seat of the car. You're probably going to get into an accident. And that's exactly how I look at saving your password in Chrome or any other browser for that matter. So, Andre, what's interesting to you about this, either from the reaction from our community, where maybe it was kind of like a case of the boy who cried wolf, go change your LastPass passwords? Do we got to watch that kind of behavior as professionals? And I use that term loosely because of the state of our industry. But seriously, I think if doctors were running out and saying oh my God, I don't know, the vaccine that everybody took, it's going to have all these horrible effects and spouting out all this misinformation. I think that would be frowned upon. Shouldn't this be treated in the same light, in your opinion?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think one of the biggest issues that we as IT professionals are having is that how can we say that Google is not doing something right or has not provided a service that is not that is not secure. So that's kind of one of the pushbacks we always would get is, okay, you want me to use a password manager, but you can't tell me that Google, being a multi-billion-dollar company, is not properly storing the passwords that they're using in Chrome or Microsoft for that example.
Well, I guess the easy answer for me on that one is Google's not storing anything.
Mhm.
This is on your computer. This doesn't go to the cloud. I mean, it does sync to the cloud
Yeah, it
if you
syncs with the
turn
cloud.
on syncing, but this isn't a security service that's provided by Google. This is convenience
Yep.
to save it in your browser, so the next time you got to go to that web page, you don't have to log in again. It does it automatically for you. And in my experience of 20 plus years in IT and cybersecurity, when we're talking about convenience, we're talking about a reduction in your security posture. That's just a rule of thumb.
Yeah. And it was interesting too, because when people were talking about the LastPass situation, and they're like, well, I changed my password and then I got another email that my password was breached. And it was like, okay, yeah, because you were updating it in your browser and your browser is breached, and therefore you're just sending out the new information back to this malware site. So yeah.
There is a solution.
I'm all ears.
I mean,
I'm all ears.
we spent an entire episode on it a few episodes ago when we talked about LastPass, the managers, the keepers. Every one of them has a browser extension, and if you install the browser extension, sign in using that,
right,
you can save it in your browser, and it can autofill it for you. But then you don't have to have the risk of saving it, over to Google. And I would say, if you got the email that someone logged in using your LastPass, you need to change your LastPass password. It means it was leaked. You probably had it saved in your browser. Saved in your browser. It got stolen by Redline. So don't save your
ever. Just turn. I mean, if you can turn the feature off in the settings, just go turn it off so it doesn't ask you, and you don't misclick, or you're tempted to be like, oh well, I can save it for this site, because it might. I'm going to state the obvious here for most of you, but just because you install or use a password manager doesn't stop the browser from asking you if you want to save it. And a lot of people might not know the difference. They might think it's their password manager that's asking them, do you want to save this password, when it's really their Google Chrome browser. So just have the awareness that your browser will ask you to save passwords, and that is not secure. And have the awareness to know whether your password manager or your browser, like Chrome or Edge or whatever you're using, is asking you to save that password. So that's kind of how I look at it. So, but good stuff. So guys, more important topic that we want to jump into is the fact that there are cyber attacks happening. And I understand cyber attacks happening to businesses and them not making the news simply because they're a small company. And this, there's a ransomware attack every 11 seconds. And my expectation here is not everybody, is worthy of a news cycle article. But it is becoming concerning to me that the amount of cyber attacks that are increasing over time are, it's just something that you look at and go, why isn't this being talked about more? Why aren't more people being made aware of the fact that cyber criminals are in this game to make money, and they're very good at exploiting vulnerabilities in software and computers that we use every day to trick people and trick employees of companies into clicking on things and doing things on the computer that maybe they shouldn't, that ultimately lead to a ransomware attack or some kind of extortion payment to cyber criminals. And it's concerning because you look at it from one sense and go, okay, well, they don't want to talk about small companies. But when you know about a very large publicly traded company and you do a Google search, and I'm just going to bring this up to prove a point, and you do a Google search on a company and nothing comes up other than, excuse me, a couple of investing articles. What do you guys take of this?
I mean,
go
go ahead.
I said, without getting into conspiracy theories, it sounds that this information is being suppressed, that they don't want the public to know about this. Because I'm even on Facebook, and I'm doing hashtag ScheduleFly or just their company name in general, and I'm not finding anything about about news about these attacks happening.
And I would say what it makes me feel like is that just America just has headline fatigue on everything, and somebody can commit the worst atrocity today and everybody will talk about it. It'll get shared 7 billion times or whatever. And then 3 days from now, we've all forgotten about it. And I wonder if they're not getting the traffic by publicizing these things that they used to, because people are like, oh, they just see cybersecurity as one big thing altogether. Maybe they're not getting the clicks that they want or something. I don't know. That's just a thought.
I highly doubt that that's the case. When you're looking at this company, R.R. Donnelley, right? And like we didn't talk about the specific attack that I have up on the screen here. There's only 2 articles written about the intrusion. This is a publicly traded company who's currently going under a buy by another company, a merger or an acquisition. Everything else is about the merger and acquisition. How much, leading up to it. There's only 2 small articles, and one of them has to do with the fact that they had to file something with the SEC. The other interesting piece is that there's a lot of companies who use R.R. Donnelley for printing services. One of them here being the state of New Jersey. They are unable to it's like motor vehicles, and they're unable to print motor vehicle documents and checks because apparently they use R.R. Donnelley for some sort of service. And they announced 6 days ago that they hired a cyber forensic expert and contacted law enforcement. So this is a big deal, and there's very little coverage of it. As you know,
so what's your theory on that?
I don't know yet. It'll probably come to me, this year or something like that. I don't know why the people don't take this more seriously. I think that there's going to be a day of reckoning. So New Jersey can't print motor vehicle documents, issue checks because of cyber attack. And we're starting to see these cyber attacks affect other companies that are downstream from these other companies. So now you have a major printing company that provides printing type services. I don't know exactly what they do. It sounds like I read another article the other day where like the company that prints Pokemon cards today uses R.R. Donnelley. Like it's going to affect Pokemon cards, and they think that Pokemon cards are going to go up in value because of this. Sure. Because they're so highly traded. And it's something that, when you're not printing these cards and they're not in circulation and there's demand, and Pokemon cards are a precursor to what's going to happen in the NFT space, just to give you a heads up. But I don't know what's going on and why we're not talking about these things, but these things affect a lot of people downstream, down the road. There were fears around it through Colonial Pipeline and the meat supply hacks and the grain hack. But these are legitimate cyber attacks where these businesses are being crippled. And it's taking them a while to get back online, and it's affecting the other businesses downstream. So we're seeing it here with R.R. Donnelley and all the printing. It's also going to affect the M&A side of the company's deal with, tons of cyber attacks go down, a high frequency go down when companies are being acquired or they're in the middle of a merger or an acquisition. This is becoming a very common thing because cyber criminals are using that transaction as leverage to get a quick payment. We've talked about this before on this show. But the other thing is like we still have, I'm going to pull up Kronos. you still have Kronos out there, which is a payroll and HR company that had an issue. I don't remember exactly when it was. Maybe 3
right.
weeks ago.
Yeah,
right?
right before the holidays.
Right. And look at all these companies that are now. I just typed in Kronos in the search box under Google News. I just switched, the filter to just give me the news for the past week. There's nothing about Kronos in here. You don't see anything about Kronos and the actual cyber attack that happened to Kronos. It's all the companies that were downstream from Kronos that are having trouble paying employees complaining that their paychecks are missing money. And when you're an employee and you might live paycheck to paycheck, that's a big deal, right? And that's how these things affect average, everyday humans. And this is why this show exists and this podcast exists, because we want to bring awareness to all this stuff. Guys, look at this list of companies that use this, and that's all we're talking about in the news is people not getting paid, people not getting their paychecks, right? And I think that's the problem, Randy. And what you asked me earlier, a lot of these cyber attacks don't impact you at the level of I can't get gas, I can't get chicken, I can't get bread, I can't get my paycheck. It's this kind of like mystical thing that happens to companies and automatically somehow gets resolved by a bunch of wizards. And it doesn't really ever affect the average American. And that's why it doesn't make the news. When it does affect the average everyday American, then they feel like it's newsworthy. And I guess that's what I'm saying in 2022, that needs to stop. And
I would still stick by what I said, and the idea of headline fatigue is a symptom, in my opinion, of a larger thing that's true with us as a society. And this isn't really cybersecurity, but it's literally what you just said, where people aren't interested if it doesn't affect them. And we need to be more classical, more critical, or whatever it's called, about our thinking, where we try to learn and discover the whole world around us, not just what we think applies to us, because a lot of times this is a perfect example, and what you're saying is a perfect example. Cybersecurity does affect us directly, but so many people think that it doesn't, so they lose interest. They lose interest in it. So anyway, I really want to encourage people towards thinking for yourself and being a lifelong learner, going after knowledge every day, as much as you can, and being well informed about everything. And then maybe that'll help solve some of the headline fatigue, or, doesn't involve me. There's this whole thing in city government. I've been in city government some. It's called Not in My Backyard. And it's like they're okay for it if it's across town, but not in their backyard. And that's the same mentality. They say, well, it doesn't affect me, so I don't care. Or it does affect me, and now all of a sudden I do care when I didn't care before. So anyway.
And I guess for guys like us, we're just trying to help everyone get ahead of this, because it's a problem that can be solved. It's if we just do the things that we know make it difficult for cyber criminals, this isn't as easy for them, but we make it easy for them. And I guess that's the frustrating part from our standpoint, is that we know how to prevent this stuff and we know how to make it really difficult. And we just see time and time again, these companies get hammered left and right. And I don't think we're in a place anymore where you can say this isn't going to affect me, but it's also something where it's like, you can't look at it like I have no control over it, because you do. You have control over whether you buy from a company or not. Who cares about your data and protecting it? And these are things that we need to start evaluating when we're working with companies and deciding whether I'm going to, give my information to this company or purchase products or services from these companies, because I want to know what their security posture looks like. Are they protecting me, or am I going to have to deal with an issue because they're not doing what they should be when it comes to cybersecurity. I'm trying to be nice with my words there. But really at the end of the day, some of these businesses are negligent in how they handle cybersecurity in their business. And it's almost gross negligence to the point where they've been told that they have these problems, but yet out of sales, marketing, growth, they choose not to invest in these things, and they choose to just, spend money on sales and marketing and grow the company and try to make a name for themselves or try to, improve top line revenue. And things like cybersecurity suffer. And we're going to jump right into it and I'm not saying that this company falls into this, but another company that's currently under a ransomware attack that's affecting a lot of businesses out there. And unfortunately, one of the worst industries to have to deal with something like this, because they took probably COVID the worst, right? Is the restaurant and hospitality business, right? And now a lot of restaurants that use a software, cloud-based software, similar to like what Kronos does, a cloud-based HR and payroll software. This is a cloud-based piece of scheduling software. And this is now down, making it difficult for people, restaurants and restaurant owners and managers who use this software to schedule their staff to come in to work, to deal with things like time off requests and stuff like that. They have no idea who's showing up for their shift on Monday, because on January 1st, this company got hit with a ransomware attack, and I'm literally sharing their homepage from their company on the screen right now. 3 days of updates from the owners, and that's really it. I've actually talked to some of the users of this software, and they are not getting any more information than what you see here. And this is kind of the reality we live in now with 2022. If you get hit with ransomware, you're going to have to be doing things like this, putting up websites that look like they were built in 1994, that give people basic updates as to what's going on with the situation. This is going to be a public relations nightmare for this company. Mm-hmm. And their competitors are going to jump all over this, rightfully so, and steal their business, right? Because while these people can't use this Schedulify software, the competitors are emailing and calling and social media ads and social media DMs saying, hey, we can get you on our system for free for the next 30 days. Just switch on over. And that's what's going to happen. And that's what people need to be aware of, that you will lose customers if this happens to you. But on the flip side, if you are a customer of somebody who uses a software, there's no guarantee that this couldn't happen to something like QuickBooks. And you think that, all the businesses that use Intuit QuickBooks in the cloud now, if that gets hit and it goes down, you're not doing accounting in your business until it's back up. And how are you going to collect money? And how are you, think about what happens if these types of tools in your business go away for either a week, 2 weeks, a month, or forever. Andre, thoughts?
Yeah, I put in the chat here. It's actually becoming the new normal. It's like people are now. It's like they just, okay, I got hacked. Whatever. And then when it does involve, funny enough, I forgot to mention this, but yesterday I was speaking with someone. They did a 15-minute consultation with me, and the guy told me that he got hacked 3 times in the last 6 months. Bank accounts, email got hacked, and I asked him, did you get a cybersecurity, have you done the cybersecurity review and to see how it happened or whatever? And it's like we're becoming a reaction nation where it's like, unless it's something major, then it's like cue the president for a press conference, and then we're going to work on legislation and all of this stuff, and then it dies down, and it's kind of like the frog in the boiling point, and it's like we're really being burned right now and not realizing that this is not good for our economy. This is not good for our businesses.
Yep, Randy, thoughts?
Man, I totally agree with that. This is a horrible place for a business to be in the middle of a ransomware attack where they can't bill. I mean, and I know you mentioned Kronos a little bit ago. We were talking about that. you know, they provide a lot of the back end payroll stuff and human resource type things for companies. I've got a friend who's an executive in a competitor that has their own stuff. And they were already blowing and going. And I know they're picking up tons of customers now. And like you said, going in and offering like 6 months for free. You know, hey, we'll help you offboard from that other locked up infected computer, company. And, you know, we'll bring you over to our end. So it is pretty scary. And for it to happen can be really bad. And, you know, we deal with a lot of companies coming through breach remediation. That's what we call it, you know, bringing them back from being hacked. And it's a bad, and not only mentioning this, like you can't bill, but then a lot of the psychological operations that the hackers use to get inside your head to cause you to freak out and make bad decisions. I mean, it's insane. And like you mentioned probably 20 minutes ago, there's a lot we can do to prevent most of this. Obviously, you can't be 100% secure, but there's a lot you can do to prevent a lot of this. And we sound like broken records, y'all. The three of us say this every day, all day long. You know, we need to be more serious about cybersecurity.
Yeah, we in my opinion, for me, for 2022, you know where I'm at. You know, I'm, you know, out there trying to spread the word about cybersecurity. And I think for 2022, you got to keep hammering away because the awareness just isn't there with people. And the threat is growing and growing and growing. I don't necessarily agree with Andre's term of the new normal.
No, I don't want it to become the new normal. No,
and I don't think it will be. Okay. I think this is the year. I think within the next 2 years, I don't know if it'll happen this year, but there will be a punch in the mouth moment for a lot of people, where what I said around people making decisions around whether they buy a cloud application or cloud services based on their price, which is a lot of times where people go to make a decision. Oh, well, that has all the same features and it's $30 less per month, right? They're going to look at the security side of it too. Like, what are they doing to protect my data? Because the other like kind of disturbing thing about a tool like Schedulefly for me is that you have these cloud-based tools, right? And if you think about the evolution of technology, we used to have these things called intranets, right? These websites that kind of existed only within inside of a company, right? And they weren't exposed to the outside world. And over time, that is shifted to the cloud. Like people are more comfortable with running these kind of internal type communication systems or platforms through a cloud-based system versus a server that only exists in their network and isn't exposed to the internet. And while you can do this securely, I think psychologically, the data that we're willing to put into a system that we feel is closed or isn't accessible from some public person or isn't the public part of our website, as people say it. I think people are more apt to put more personally identifiable or more sensitive information in these types of apps. So when a Schedulefly gets hit and they have their database and they have all their data completely encrypted, you got to be concerned about the kind of data that these restaurants and these hospitality businesses were putting into the system. Am I right or wrong on that process, that thought process there?
No, totally right, man.
Yeah, I mean, I just think people put more sensitive information in things that they don't feel are like Facebook, right? You know what I mean? Like you're more apt to put something into a system. Like, I don't know, this Schedulefly thing, if somebody doesn't show up for work, I mean, I got to imagine you're putting some pretty juicy employee details into this system. I mean, a lot of companies still use social security numbers as employee IDs. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And if somebody goes, well, you know, we don't have to worry about it. We can use their social security numbers or employee ID because the system, we're the only ones who access it. No one else has access to it. Customers don't see it. Well, hackers do. And when hackers get it, and decide to dump it on the dark web, then everybody gets to see it. And that's the mentality that needs to change in 2022 with a lot of these businesses that think that way. So anything else you guys want to add on Schedule-Fly before we move on?
Do you think this is their game plan is the silence and just, because like I mentioned earlier, where, I'm doing a hashtag search and I can't even find like all of their old marketing and whatever else they would do online. There's just nothing there. Do you think that's just part of their game plan?
You mean for this cyber attack?
Yes.
Yeah, you know what, just to be honest with you, my initial thought on this and where I'm kind of going with things is knowing that there's only a handful of companies who really get this remediation work, because there's a lot of collusion going on right now between the insurance companies and the companies who actually get this work. And there's only a handful, apparently, that are getting this work through insurance. I got to imagine that these companies had some type of insurance or have insurance involved, or when they do reach out, they reach out to one of the quote unquote, top reputable companies. Mm-hmm. And I think that those companies are engaging with the same people because I've seen the behavior shift from uncontrolled release of information to a very different scenario, which is we don't say much at all to the public. And I think that over the last 6 to 9 months, there's been a bunch of breach attorneys who have gotten smart to this, to how to handle this. And the breach attorneys are the ones who are calling the shot when these things go down. And they're releasing as little information as they can while this stuff is happening. And that's what I feel like is going on. So there's like 4 or 5 guys in the whole entire country who are being hired as breach attorneys right now when these things go down. And I keep seeing the same kind of pattern come out with these companies and how much information actually gets released. And that's my opinion. So,
yeah. So on one hand, you see some companies where they over communicate. They want to let their customers and their clients know what's happening. And then,
but when's the last time we actually saw that happen?
I would say in our industry though. So maybe, yeah, just to the normal person listening, no, but then I guess for specifically in our industry with the Log4j, the Kaseya, et cetera.
I mean, the vulnerability versus a hack, 2 different things in my mind, right? The vulnerability, Log4j is a vulnerability. Mm-hmm. That's not a hack. I think when you're talking about a cyber attack and a company currently going under a cyber attack, what we saw with like Universal Healthcare, that's the last one that I can think of. And I don't remember exactly when that was. I feel like that was like 1.5 years ago. But Universal Healthcare, they absolutely botched that whole thing. Remember, like they had put out 3 different messages on their website, and you could just tell like their PR team was an absolute shambles when this went down with them. Since then, you've kind of seen, I can think of the Kaseya breach. You didn't hear much from them through that whole thing and then they got the decryptor, and today we still don't know how they got the decryptor. Yeah. Right?
Except for that botch YouTube video, the owner.
What's that?
Remember the YouTube video the owner did? That was what he got a lot of flack for.
Well, right. He did that one. He did a couple other interviews, which I just think that would have happened regardless. Like Fred's just Fred. I mean, just straight up. Like he's going to do it his way. He always been that way, and that's just how it is. And right or wrong, he's going to do it the way he wants to do it. But I gotta say, he didn't really reveal a lot about the attack, and we still don't know how they got the key. So they kept things tight-lipped, although he was out in front of it, right? He was out there being the face, which I got to give him respect for, right? For him to go out there and be on videos as the CEO of a company in the middle of one of the largest cyber attacks, in the world, that takes some whats. So I give him credit for that, but at the same time, I do see a trend where these cyber attacks are become less and less information is becoming available as things happen. But that's totally separate from the fact that reporters can cover this stuff and get the word out that it's actually happening. You don't need a lot of detail to go out with a story on NBC News that says the largest printer in the United States is currently under a cyber attack, and this is all the things that it affects. The states of New Jersey, healthcare insurance companies, investment firms that own stock in this company could be impacted. There's a lot of different things when you're talking about a publicly traded company that could be impacted from a cyber attack. And I think it needs to be in the news, and it's not. So that's it for me. Oh, wait, no, we got one more. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this Florida hospital system. Andre, you brought this one up, so I'm going to kind of let you run point on this.
Yes.
I don't recall why you wanted to talk about this, so I apologize. So what's important about this? Let's let the audience know, and then we'll rap about it a little bit.
Yeah, so this is my hometown, so I just wanted to talk about it because it's the next county over, literally 5 minutes away from me, and this is one of the major hospital systems in our community. So essentially, Broward Health said that hackers gained access to their network on October 15 through a third-party medical provider that has access to its system. So we've always talked about supply chain. So the hackers access names, birthdays, email addresses, banking information, social security numbers, driver license numbers, patient histories, and treatment and diagnostic records, among other information, as if that wasn't enough. And what really was surprising for me, why I wanted to talk about it, is because the representative from the Broward Health System says that this personal information was exfiltrated. However, there is no evidence that the information was actually misused. So hacker took everything, but I don't think we don't think they're going to do anything with it.
So, I mean, I could go in a lot of different directions with this, but are you stating that who wrote this story?
It was a
Ocean. So are you basically saying that Mr. Ocean is inaccurate in his reporting here, or is the hospital system being misguided, or their thought process is misguided? Which kind of your take on this?
No, I'm okay with what Mr. Ocean is reporting because he's just quoting what the Broward representative said. It's more of what the Broward Health System's representative is saying. That although that the information is exfiltrated, there's no evidence the information was actually misused.
Right. And give people some, I guess, from my mind, like, I understand what that means when you say that.
Right.
But let's help people understand, like, what that means. Like, now the hackers have taken the data, right? And now somebody else has your private health information in their possession, which is a HIPAA violation, number one. And you have a right as a patient of this hospital to file a HIPAA complaint and have it looked into. But that once this data is out here, there's no timeline there's no expiration date on when it can be used maliciously against somebody. Right. And I guess that's the point.
Yeah.
Right. Just because in the last 60 days they have no evidence of anything happening doesn't mean in a month or two somebody doesn't come along and decide, oh, let me see what I can do with this Broward Health database that's been dumped in this dark web form. Let me see if I can start, doing identity fraud or, scamming people or extorting people because I know what their medical file says. And there's some things in here that they might not want to have out in the public. And maybe I can send them an email and show them some screenshots and get them to pay me, $1,000 or $2,000 so I don't release that information. These are things that actually happen with data that's on the dark web. And that's, Andre's point is like, hey, just because this guy says this, don't have this, again, false sense of security that these guys go out and give the public when they release a lot of this stuff. So, Randy, any thoughts about this behavior from the Broward County?
I'm hiding my shaking of my head right now, just because the fact that somebody that's involved in the breach says publicly that we don't think the data's been misused, like that doesn't give me any comfort, at all. And I don't trust it I'm not saying that he's lying, but the fact your data is in the hands of a bad actor. Yeah. We're trusting in the goodness of their soul not to release it, So, and is Broward going to pay the ransom and get the data back, or are they even negotiating with the guys? And if they aren't, then that means your data is going to be released. It just hadn't been yet.
You got to assume at any point in time, but once your data leaves your network,
yep,
and it wasn't authorized, you got to treat that as your data has been released to the public. And if you pay any kind of ransom in the hopes, I want to use the right words here, so I want to say this correctly. If you pay the ransom in the hopes that they don't release your data, that's all you're doing is you're paying for a hope, because you have no control over what they do with that data once they have it, whether you paid them or not. Now it's just a gentleman's handshake that, hey, you paid me a bunch of money and I promise I'm not going to release this. Well, you better hope he doesn't get ransomware or his computer doesn't get stolen, right? There's just a lot of different ways it can go wrong once they have the information. And that's the bottom line. And that's what people need to realize. So, paying any kind of ransom to solve this problem is a no-go. And I think that's mainly Andre's point, is like going back to what this guy said is you got to assume that this data is going to be abused. You can't say things like we have no evidence. Well, guess when the evidence is going to appear? After the fucking crime's already been committed and somebody's identity's been stolen, or, that's when you're going to realize, oh, somebody's misusing the data from our breach. And that's too late at that point, right? So now that you know it's gone, you have the evidence that somebody took it. Now you have to assume that it's public. And if you don't know, the dark web is just an ecosystem of criminals. They trade this stuff. It's like, walking down, going in the streets of New York, and there's a criminal on every corner selling you something, right? And you can just buy whatever you want, basically, guns, drugs, and, stolen data to try to do, identity theft. So,
and I know you didn't like the word new normal, but this is what I mean by it. It's because it was 1,357,000 people affected that they're now getting notification. This is basically the entire city of Fort Lauderdale. Every single person that was there.
It'd be interesting because, like you said, new normal, and I say we got to go in the other direction. We can't accept this as the new normal. Like, this is just how life's going to be. This is just a thing we're going to deal with, like colds and flus. Like, no, like we can prevent this crap.
Definitely.
Like, God.
Yeah, but this is it's like the same playbook, because then in another article it says the hospital is offering 24 months of identity theft protection, implemented multi-factor authentication for all user-versus systems, and minimum security requirements for devices not managed by Broward Health. And then that's going to be the end of it. And then, of course, they'll probably get fined, and things like that. But then that's it. They just move on. But your Social Security and all of that information is out there, and there's nothing the consumer can do about it.
Yeah, 100%. You're 100% right. That they're going to treat the symptoms as they come up, not treat the underlying problem, which is, you keep having a heart attack, or you keep having these problems, but the underlying problem is that you're overweight, you're obese, right? And they're not treating the obesity, and this is the same thing. They're not treating the core of the problem is you don't have a solid foundation for cybersecurity, but so let's just get hacked and then we'll deal with all the repercussions of that cyber attack with other tools and other things that we can throw at it. You're 100% right that, you know, in a sense that this is a new normal, but this is the point of why the three of us are together, why we're putting out, you know, podcast after podcast, because people, you know, we're three little voices that are bringing awareness to this problem. So people understand, like, it's not that difficult to put a solid foundation in place so these things stop happening at the rate that they're happening, right? And that's how I look at it.
Yep.
All right, guys, we're 50 minutes in. I think that was a good show. You guys got any last parting words before we bounce? All right, sounds good. Randy shaking his head no, Andre smiling. So, all right, everybody, remember, please share our show. I don't see any comments or any questions up there, so we're going to bounce, and we'll see y'all next week. Take care.